This is your next part of the Eco 1, so take a minute and set up your page. We're in Ecology 1. This is for remote bio or for makeup. And we're in Unit 2. So in this unit, what we're going to do, or in this set of notes, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about b12A. So b12A says that you're going to interpret relationships. Interpret relationships, including, and these are some you should recognize, including predation. Think about predators. Parasitism, parasites. Commensalism, you might remember that one. Mutualism. And competition among all the organisms. Hopefully this will just be a review for you guys so you understand what's going on here. So let's start off, and I'm going to remind you again the definition for the ecosystem. So we're going to start off here, and I'm going to start way over here to the side, and I'm going to make a little weird stuff going on here. So remember that the ecosystem is the community plus the non-living environment. So there's your plus sign. And I'm going to abbreviate environment, and again, it's one of those that I'll get tired of writing. Here's environment. So ENVR stands for environment. But I'm not going to be done there. I'm going to remind you of the definition for community. So a community is all the populations in an area. And it's in a specific area. And then we're going to say, okay, but what about populations? Well, populations are the group of one species, all the same species. It's a group of one species. And then I'm going to underline one more word, and here's a word that we haven't taken notes on yet. And a species is when you have a group of organisms that can mate and have viable offspring. Okay? So these can mate and have viable, that means they're nice and healthy offspring. Okay, so let me give you an example that's non-viable. You guys know that you can mate a horse and a donkey, and that's how you get mules. Mules are sterile. They can't have offspring. So the only way you're going to get another mule is if you made another donkey and a horse. So when we say species can mate and have viable offspring, it means they have to be normal, healthy organisms, not sterile, not something that's weird or something along those lines. So the next thing we're going to do, once we have that ecosystem, within the ecosystem you have lots of relationships. And you can have some relationships that are symbiotic. That means they live closely together. Symbiotic relationships. Symbiotic relationships are relationships between two different organisms that are in close physical contact. So we have relationships between two different organisms, so two different orgs in close physical contact. Okay, and you know some about these. You know if you've had a tick on you or fleas or something like that, that's a relationship. It might not be a happy one for everyone, but it's a relationship there, and it's in close physical contact. So there are different types of these, and so I'm going to start off, and the first one I'm going to use is the one I just gave you an example of, and that's parasitism, parasites. So parasitism, and I'm going to put a little sign over here. It's good for one, that's the plus sign, but really bad for the other one. So you've got two organisms, it's really good for one, but negative for the other one. This is when we talk about parasites. There are all sorts of crazy parasites out there. If you start taking a class on parasites and even worms and stuff, you'll almost not want to eat anymore. This is when one organism feeds on another organism. Only one organism benefits. Benefits means it's good for it, right? Gets the good out of it. Only one organism benefits. The other one's in bad shape. The more, typically parasites don't kill their host. That's not what they want. They want it to stay alive so that they can feed on it long enough. But when you get more and more, too many parasites on an organism, that's when it tends to have some really negative effects and even can cause death here. So examples: fleas, ticks, some fungi. There are some people who have fungi on them too, and we're not just talking about humans, but in a lot of cases, a lot of worms. There are more parasitic roundworms on the planet than there are, if you just count them up, different species of organisms. There are so many roundworms that are parasites on things, it's just kind of scary to think of. You can find roundworm parasites on lettuce and things like that. It's just, if you ever have a chance, it's interesting, kind of gross, but interesting if you take a class that talks about worms. Yep. Okay, so we have parasitism. The next one we're going to do is commensalism. So commensalism is when one organism benefits but nothing happens to the other. It's not good, it's not bad, it's just nothing. So commensalism, one organism benefits, no impact on the other. One org, well, my pen's running out here. One organism benefits, they get good from it. No impact on the other. So nothing bad happens. Nothing good happens, but there's nothing bad. No impact on the other. Okay? You might even say something like, more gross stuff here. There are little, tiny little mites that feed on dead skin cells on your eyelashes, around your eyelashes. It doesn't really do anything negative or positive to you. It's just, that's where they live. Okay? So we have commensalism. One benefits, the other one, no impact. It's just there. No, nothing there. And then the third one is mutualism. Mutualism is both organisms. Again, you've got a close, they're all going to be in close physical contact, but both organisms benefit. So one, it's good for one, and it's good for the other. Both of them benefit. So what I'm going to mention to you right here is something called the endosymbiotic theory. I'm going to bring it up now. It's not going to be on your test, but you're going to hear it now. I'm going to prep the way for you now. Endosymbiotic, okay, there's the symbiotic. Endo means inside, theory. And what that theory is it says that, how did our cells come out with mitochondria and chloroplast? And it's weird because if you go way back evolutionary history and stuff, what you find is that they think that the mitochondria and the chloroplast were their own little bacteria. And it makes sense because today, in all of your cells, your mitochondria, they have their own DNA. So all of your other cells, all the DNA is in, all of the cell parts, all the DNA is inside the nucleus. But with the mitochondria, it has its own DNA. So they think way back past, evolutionary in the past somewhere, that there were bacteria that had their own DNA, and they came up with a mutualistic relationship so that, hey, this bacteria lived with this cell and it benefited, they both benefited from it. And over time, the bacteria actually became a part of the cell. It was kind of engulfed by the cell and it became a part of it. The cell protected it, it gave it what it needed, and in this case, the mitochondria produced energy for it. So that's the endosymbiotic theory. So you're hearing it now, but you'll also hear it a little bit later on. The next part of this we're going to talk about, and let's see if this yellow shows up here. So we have symbiotic relationships. Now what we're going to do is we're going to talk about community relationships. And community relationships are between multiple organisms. So if I compare these up here, it's just between two different organisms that are living close in contact with each other, just two. Here, we've got these relationships between multiple organisms here. So again, let's go through here and talk about this. And again, you guys have heard these words before, so this is nothing new to you. So here's number 4, and we have predation, predators. When we have predation, one organism kills and eats another. Okay, so one organism is going to kill and eat the other one. And we humans do this. We're just smart enough. Sorry, got it messed up a little bit. We humans are smart enough that we pay someone else to kill our food. Like I'm not going to go out and kill a cow to eat my hamburger. I'm going to pay someone, and somebody else is going to kill it. They're going to raise it. They're going to kill it. They're going to package it up, butcher it, package it up for me so that I don't have to do all that stuff on there. So we have predation. One organism kills and eats another. Then the next one we have is competition. And it's not like competition, you're going out and playing games. In this case, you're competing for resources. So it's competition for resources. So you've heard the phrase, the early bird gets the worm. Well, that's the one that's going to survive then. The early bird is going to get the worm. It's the one that's going to survive and be able to mate and have offspring. So when we talk about competition, which organisms are better at getting available resources? So which organisms, that's what the competition is we're talking about. Which ones are better at getting available resources? So the competition is to get to the food, to get to the material to make the nest, to get up to all those materials there. And then the last one, number 6, is going to be fitness. And it's not talking about, hey, let's be healthy. Fitness in this case is which organisms are better at using the resources. So which organisms are better at using the resources. That's what we mean by fitness. So which of them are better at using? So who's going to get to the resources first, and then who's better able to use the resources to be able to get the most energy out of it or the most good or benefit out of it. So when we talk about the relationships, when you look at these, the teak, if you go back up to the teak says that, hey, we're going to interpret the relationships, including these. So what does it mean? What does it mean when we talk about parasitism? Is it a good relationship? Is it a bad relationship? So it's good for one, negative to the other. Commensalism, good or bad? Well, it's good for one, but it really has no impact on the other. And then here we have mutualism. It's good for both. They both benefit from that. So when we talk about interpreting the relationships, we're interpreting them in terms of, are they good? Who's got the benefit? Who's got the good stuff from it? Who's negatively benefited from that?